Welcome to Blaze News, the mandate day 25. I'm Jill Savage. Tonight on the agenda, the DOJ's silence on the Epstein files. In an ex-post, Representative Anna Paulina Luna revealed earlier this month that the GOP Oversight Committee sent a letter to the Justice Department requesting the release of the files. But as of last night, we're still waiting for Attorney General Pam Bondi to respond. FBI whistleblower Garret O'Boyle recently claimed on the Benny Johnson show that the FBI is in a panic as it rushes to destroy evidence before Kash Patel and Dan Bongino can investigate these documents.
People inside the FBI have been working night and day to destroy files on these servers. And I was told that once these files are destroyed, the way they are set up, that even Elon Musk could not restore them.
Elsewhere, White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt defended incoming FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino against attacks from Democrats. Watch.
This is a man who loves his country and who has honorably served our country in ways that many people have not. He understands the depth of the corruption at these institutions, which the American people reelected President Trump to shake up. And I think it's quite despicable to see many networks in this room who have had chyrons on their television screens labeling Mr. Bongino as a far-right podcaster.
According to the Washington Times, the FBI is launching a probe into the off-the-books honeypot operation against the 2016 Trump campaign orchestrated by former director James Comey. The Bureau is reportedly trying to identify 2 undercover female agents who were embedded within the campaign. Now let's shift gears to immigration. Leavitt commented on the recent leaks enabling illegal aliens and gang members to avoid ICE raids. She made it clear that the administration won't tolerate sabotage from within its own ranks. Listen.
Because it's unacceptable for career bureaucrats who are standing in the way of the will of the American people and enacting President Trump's agenda. If they don't want to adhere to the will of the 77 million Americans who reelected President Trump, then they should go find another job.
And Leavitt confirmed that Trump hasn't forgotten about his promise to build the border wall. Take a look.
The wall is an incredible deterrent factor for illegal migrant caravans. The president is committed to the continuation of the construction of the wall. The previous administration actually sold off the resources that the Trump administration secured to build the wall. And that's an egregious misuse of the American taxpayers' money. They just let those resources rot on the southern border. They actually sold them for pennies on the dollar. So this administration, DHS and ICE and Customs and Border Patrol and Tom Homan and all of the great people who are working on this effort are committed to continuing the construction of.
And their efforts are working. Interior arrests are up 134%. And this past Saturday, there were only 220 illegal border crossings. That's a 15-year low. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky has agreed to provide the United States with 50% of revenue from his country's mineral resources without a future security guarantee. Zelensky is expected to sign this agreement during his upcoming visit to the White House. And the CDC is reportedly defying President Trump and RFK Jr. by taking part in a vaccine meeting with the World Health Organization this week. As the Daily Mail exclusively reported, a CDC spokesperson revealed that members of the organization will be actively participating virtually, though the agency has not publicly announced its plans to attend. Meanwhile, the House Judiciary GOP revealed that under the Biden administration, the IRS leaked taxpayer information of over 405,000 Americans, including President Trump's. And that's far more than the estimate of 70,000 Americans than the IRS gave last May. Of course, that number is going to be bigger. Now let's go ahead and bring in Blaze News Editor-in-Chief Matthew Peterson. So we get the FBI deleting evidence. There's so much going on right now every single day. And as Garret O'Boyle was saying in there, if they are successful in deleting this evidence, even Elon Musk himself will not be able to go back and find this. So what's going to happen here?
Well, look, I question the timing of this story just because these people have known that they were going to have to delete files for a while, right? So I'm sure that 100% sure that there has been, deletion going on for some time. I also trust a lot of these former agents and whistleblowers like O'Boyle. So look, you got to get in there as fast as possible. And then if you do know that things have been deleted, those people have to be punished, right? So if people in an unauthorized manner got rid of any kind of information, we have to go after those people and punish them. But I have a lot of confidence that everyone going in, is Dan Bongino not going to try to find those people and punish them? Of course he is. Is Kash Patel going to hold back, and hesitate to pull the trigger? No, of course not. So we know they've been deleting things for a while. That's what bureaucrats do. And I'm sure that there's truth to the story, but the good guys are rapidly assembling.
Well, our main man, Glenn Beck, was saying famously that went around X all over that when Kash Patel was going to be confirmed that the Epstein files would be released later that night. We're still waiting. We're still waiting on Pam Bondi. She has now said over the weekend that she had the files on her desk. Now representatives in Congress are getting a little impatient. They are going to X saying, where are these files? This is now more of a communications PR thing. Like, oh, you told us you were going to do this. Right. Now you actually have to follow through. I'm sure that there's a lot of legal things under the surface that you and I don't necessarily know about, but at some point, they need to make good on these promises. Yeah, I mean, let's stipulate just in good faith, right? For the record, it's clearly any documents like this probably have all kinds of private information. It gets complicated very quickly. Then there's laws about these things. So it is true that there are a lot of both bureaucratic, for bad reason and just good reason, good reasons to delay releasing things until thorough review. But of course, in this case, we've had this information in there for a while. Everyone in the world wants it. And it's not going to be like the old days when you constantly found reasons to make, everything's secret, right? So what you should know is, everything is top secret, right? Everything can be redacted, and they do this all the time. And Kash Patel, famously on Glenn's show, he went out and said, they overclassify so many things that don't need to be classified. They do it just in case. Yes, they overclassify everything. So that's all built into the system. But here's the problem. In this case, no one cares, right? And the second reason that you usually withhold things, and even scandals, is sort of, I believe, the Bill Barr mentality, where you say, well, I need to save the reputation of the institution. We'll quietly punish people or punish them indirectly, but we need to save the reputation of the institution, because if people really knew how bad it was, it would take away from the credibility of the DOJ or FBI or whatever. But of course, that doesn't apply anymore, because there is no credibility left for half plus the country. So they're in a pickle now where people are going to expect this in a very clear and straightforward way, and they're going to expect the UFO stuff. They're going to expect the unidentified flying objects. They're going to expect the JFK stuff. This has been promised, right? And we know enough about these issues to know that there's a there's something to talk about. So it's not a joke. They need to know that MAGA, right, the base is going to be extremely angry if this doesn't come out, this sort of information doesn't start coming out in a relatively short period of time. And that is on the MAGA side of things. These are the people that Trump has appointed and now confirmed on his team, basically. But I look at the CDC story from today. This feels like the fight that is happening internally in D.C., where it says, okay, you know what? We had headlines a few weeks ago where it said everybody at the CDC, the NIH, like everybody's going to pause what you're doing because they started trying to do things that Trump would not like. Yeah. Well, right. Okay, that paused for a while. Well, now they're trying to just secretly undercover. Okay, you know what? We don't like the World Health Organization, but we're still going to go out and do these things because we know that what we want to do as the deep state, or whatever you want to call them, we know that we are right and that Donald Trump is wrong, right? That's the fight that we're having right now. Yeah. So my cocktail party example used to always be this: what if Donald Trump takes office and then issues an executive order to the CIA, the FBI, you have to do whatever, and they just say no? What happens next? Who enforces the order, right? And so you're going to see this over and over again, where the CDC is going to say, you know what? No, we think WHO, we think it's great. We're not going to do this. What are you going to do about it? No, right? And that is the fight that's going to take place
it's going to magnify. It's going to be bigger and bigger examples of this over time. Over the next year, you're going to see this happen more and more and more. Now, there's lots of tools you can use in your arsenal when you are sitting on the executive branch side and you're looking down into these agencies. There's lots of different things you can do to make life a living hell, to get people to leave and to punish people short of even like legal punishment, right? But that battle, that's the battle of the mandate. That's the battle to implement the mandate of the people. And it's a battle that is going to rage for the next few years.
I feel like Schedule F is going to have to come up on this show pretty soon with all of these fights. Well, let's go ahead and talk about the MAGA mandate some more when we come back. Blaze Media's own Rebeka Zeljko will break down her exclusive interview with Speaker Mike Johnson coming up. Well, 85% of that grass-fed beef in stores, it's actually imported. That's thanks to a 2015 law change. Foreign meat can now be labeled product of the United States just because it's packaged here. That means that grocery store meat is often full of antibiotics and hormones and seed oils. But Good Ranchers is different. They're 100% American meat, no hidden additives, no seed oils, just high-quality protein. Their beef, chicken, and seafood are all born, raised, and harvested right here in the United States, so you know exactly where your food comes from. Good Ranchers delivers straight to your door, so you can skip the grocery store line and get that farm-to-table quality while supporting American farms and ranchers. They have their New Year, New Meat promo, and you can get free ground beef, chicken breast, or wild-caught salmon in your order for a year, plus $25 off with code Jill at checkout. So don't wait. Go order now. Good Ranchers, American meat delivered.
And that one big beautiful bill will include securing the border, restoring America's energy dominance, dismantling the deep state, growing our economy, and ensuring we don't have the largest tax increase in U.S. history, as was just recounted here, and a return to peace through strength.
Well, that was Speaker Mike Johnson explaining the House's commitment to advancing President Trump's agenda earlier today. But yesterday, Blaze News political reporter Rebeka Zeljko sat down with an exclusive interview with Speaker Johnson, and she joins us now to break it all down. So, Rebeka, what stuck out from you the most with your interview with Speaker Johnson?
I'll say one of the things that stuck out to me the most was just how palpable this vibe shift was. We were able to cover quite a few topics in the few minutes that I was able to spend time with the speaker. But across the board, it really seemed like he was really dedicated to, forwarding this MAGA mandate. And we had talked throughout the election coverage and the post-election coverage about this vibe shift, and it really felt like it was something that he was taking to heart. We talked about Ukraine, we talked about DOGE, we talked about reconciliation, and a lot of the answers that he gave me seemed like he was really dedicated to actually making this vibe shift a reality, a political reality, not just in the executive branch, but also in Congress. And so I think that was probably one of the most, one of those things that really stuck out to me. And the fact that, the speaker and all of his, the crazy world that he lives in, the busy schedule that he's operating under every single day, the fact that he decided to take a few minutes to sit down with an outlet like Blaze News, as opposed to, the politicos and the punch bowls that many politicians have really decided to dedicate their time to over the last few years, I think is just even more evidence of this vibe shift that's really been working in our favor.
I like that. I think that's smart of him, and he should do it more often. Because they all should realize that this is the only way forward. I mean, it really angers me, and it should anger all of us and everyone in the audience when these guys go to these other outlets, which makes zero sense at this point in time. He should be doing exactly what he did, which is talking to you and to Chris, and he should be talking to you more. Let me say that. I want to see more of it. What would you say, though, given this experience, and you've been covering the Hill Frost for a while, what would you say to all the people, such as myself, by the way, who have been suspicious or questioning of the leadership of the speaker for a while? And he's, certainly many on the right have had questions about his approach and his capability. But here he is. He's riding the tide like everybody else right now, I suppose. What would you say in response to those questions?
I mean, I wanted to say that I'm right there with you guys. I'm as skeptical as anybody when it comes to these sorts of things. But I will say, based on my interaction with the speaker yesterday, he seemed really sincere. And, I think that a lot has changed in the last few months. He has the backing of the president, and he's going to be able to move forward with a Republican majority, and not just in the House, but also in the Senate. And so that changes the dynamic on the Hill for sure. I think that it's honestly at this point worth giving him the benefit of the doubt. And it's not just the speaker that has taken the time to sit down with us. We have a couple exciting things in the works over the next few days with other lawmakers who are going to be dedicating their time more with alternative media like ourselves. And so I think that there's definitely room for optimism there. And of course, we'll just have to wait and see. Again, on all of these issues that we spoke about, he was saying all of the right things. And so whether or not he follows through with that is another thing. But I will say I did ask him some slightly tougher questions. It wasn't a total softball interview. I did point out the fact that most, if not, all of the major legislation that was passed throughout the 118th Congress was done so with support from Democrats. And, with this big reconciliation vote on the horizon, Johnson can really only afford to lose one Republican vote. And so I asked him, are you going to have to try and reach across the aisle to get some of these, to accomplish some of these, to get some of these votes through the door? And he really didn't seem like that was going to be a reality. I mean, reconciliation is unique, as he pointed out. He said that it has almost exclusively been a partisan practice. But, with other bills in the future, he also indicated that his focus is really going to be on rallying Republicans behind the MAGA mandate and sort of implementing President Trump's directives on the Hill. And so I think there's definitely room for optimism, and we'll just have to wait and see if he adheres to these directives going forward.
All right, so Speaker Johnson is optimistic. We like that. We want him to be optimistic right now. This is the show called The Mandate. We want that here, obviously. But how confident are you then that he will be able to push through Trump's agenda? Because like you said, he had to work with the Democrats a lot. So now that you look at all of these, the big, beautiful bill that we have coming up, how confident are you that he's going to be able to get that through?
I think the next few days will be consequential. With reconciliation, that's going to be the biggest menu item. It's going to require, getting moderates, but more importantly, fiscal conservatives on board with Speaker Johnson's plans. Moderates are saying that the cuts go too far. Fiscal conservatives are saying that the cuts aren't going far enough. And so Speaker Johnson, when he spoke with me yesterday, mentioned that this whole process is not just about, having this MAGA mandate in front of you, but it's also about finding that balancing point, because the Republican conference can be pretty diverse at times. And he's tasked with a difficult job, which is getting everybody on the same page. And so whether or not he's able to accomplish that with reconciliation, whether it's tonight or he mentioned earlier today that it could be later this week, depending on how much progress needs to be made and getting the remaining holdouts on board, I think will really be a testament to how effective he is as a speaker going forward.
Rebeka, Speaker Johnson also said he'd work to get the House to codify DOGE. What does that mean, and what did you make of that?
Yeah, so DOGE has obviously been making a lot of headlines lately, and I asked him about it because not just, to Democrats' dismay, but there's also several Republicans, both on the Senate and on the House side, who have had their own reservations about Elon Musk's DOGE directives. They've said that, again, these cuts are going too far, that the layoffs are negatively impacting their constituents. And so it's sort of been a point of contention within the Republican Party, especially on Congress. And the speaker being, the leader of the Republican conference on the Hill, I asked him, how are you going to find, room for consensus within a party that's pretty split on the issue? And he reaffirmed to me that he was actually going to adhere to these DOGE initiatives as much as he could. And I use that phrase, as much as he can, because with the responsibility of codifying these things, it's going to require every single Republican to get on board. I mean, that's really the wiggle room we're talking about. It's just one seat that he could afford to lose. Once those vacancies get filled, that it'll be a little bit easier. He'll have a little bit more wiggle room, but it's going to require the entire party to get behind him. And he mentioned that it's all about finding that balancing point. It's about finding that consensus. It's taking the time to speak to the Republicans that have concerns and who have reservations, and sometimes that might mean compromise. But ultimately, he's about delivering on DOGE's directives and on President Trump's priorities.
In the last couple of minutes that we have you here, let's talk about Ukraine. And I know there have been headlines today that have come out where Zelensky is agreeing to the minerals deal for the United States to take that over. But I know that you talked to Speaker Johnson specifically about that. So what did he have to say?
Yeah, I was really curious to see what he had to say specifically about President Trump's remarks about Zelensky the previous week. He had some choice words about the president of Ukraine. He called him, I believe, a dictator without elections. He criticized the fact that he was able to get so much money from the United States to fight a war that he says they weren't able to win to begin with. And so, he sort of categorized it as this massive financial abuse. But of course, under Speaker Johnson's leadership, hundreds of billions of dollars were appropriated to Ukraine. And so I was curious if he shared that sentiment with President Trump, and if there was going to be if Ukraine funding was going to be on the table going forward at all. And I think he made some good points. He reassured our audience, and we were able to break the news at Blaze News, that there is just no appetite for Ukraine funding going forward. And I think that speaks to the fact that President Trump really is the leader of the Republican Party. And now that he's back in office, he's sort of setting the tone of how these things are going to be handled in Congress going forward. And Speaker Mike Johnson is certainly intending to implement that. But also, he made the point that with President Trump in office, we have a new commander-in-chief. We are much closer to actually resolving the conflict to the point where we won't be needing foreign funding. It's not even going to be a conversation anymore. And so I think in these next few weeks, President Trump seems like he is much closer to a peace deal than President Joe Biden was. I think that's fair to say. And so I think with that, we're at the end of the Ukraine debacle. We're approaching it, that's for sure.
I certainly hope so, Rebeka. I think that we've all had enough of that by this point in time. Thanks so much for coming on the show. We'll see you soon.
Thanks. Bye.
All right, when we come back, we'll explain how the deep state launders your tax dollars into left-wing causes. Don't go anywhere.
Oddly enough, we noticed that the Tides Foundation, our old friends, show up on the chart, clearly showing the Tides Foundation is receiving U.S. tax dollars. Now, back in the old days at Fox, I showed you the entire purpose of Tides is to be a progressive left-wing dark money machine. It's money laundering, legal, but money laundering nonetheless. You cannot trace money. Once it goes in, it goes dark. You can see what's coming out, but you don't know who's giving it. Leftist billionaires, organizations, they all donate to Tide specifically so their money can go dark.
Well, that was from the latest episode of Glenn TV, where Glenn Beck exposed the deep state's money laundering scheme through NGOs like the Tides Foundation. And Glenn's head researcher, Jason Buttrill, joins us now to unveil how him and Glenn and all the team uncovered this. So as Glenn mentioned there, this goes all the way back to the Fox News days with the Tides Foundation. What, about 2009, is it? You guys have been studying this for a very long time, and it's now back in the news in a huge way. So just take us through how you guys started unraveling this once again.
So we were approached by a couple of different people that have been writing this new technology that will actually go into USA spending and give you an algorithm so you can just pop in whatever NGO you want to know about and see this entire money trail. I would have done a lot for something like that, for this technology back in the day.
Yeah.
But when you plug in some of these organizations, it's pretty nuts because it'll show you, oh, they get federal dollars from this group, and then they get federal dollars from this group. And eventually it usually goes back to like the State Department or USAID. But what is wild, like that Tides Foundation, for that to pop up and have federal dollars, your tax dollars, are at Tides Foundation, makes no sense. It's the biggest progressive legal money laundering organization out there. Probably the biggest. How are they getting private money to advance left-wing and progressive causes, but also money straight from the government. It makes absolutely no sense. But what we found when we were doing all this was, you take a look at, let's say, USAID, because that was in the news at the time. It still is in the news. I feel like they've kind of moved off on it a little bit and kind of focused on other, organizations. But in my opinion, that's very, very scary, because this goes back to Woodrow Wilson days, the dawn of the progressive era, doubled down on by other, people like FDR, that they were sick and tired of things like, constitutions out there that would limit their power. So when we say deep state, the administrative state, this is what we're actually talking about. It's this, engine that was built during the progressive era that was designed to go around the Constitution, so that if you vote for, let's say, a Donald J. Trump, and you don't want things done the way that they've been doing, well, it doesn't matter, because they've already built this machine with tons and tons of organizations that are already just automatically are getting this money, and they're filtering it down to their buddies. It's got to stop, and we got to keep going.
It's wild to me how so much of what Glenn has done is
right
at cutting edge, and then it comes up, however many years later. Tides Foundation is like one of the first probably instances of this kind of thing that a lot of people are aware of on the right, because of the work that was done back then, and it sort of presages all this USAID stuff. But what are some of the other wild stuff, like crazy stuff, besides Tides that you found?
So we looked at, so you take a look at like USAID. USAID gets about, just annually from the balance sheet that I was looking at, around a little over $4.7, I think, billion a year. $4.7 billion. Then it'll go down to, some organizations that we're all kind of familiar with, like a National Democratic Institute, NDI, National National Endowment for Democracy, things like that we've heard before. But the crazier thing was that, okay, we know these, but we know there's another tier beyond that, because how do we get to $4 billion to USAID to all of a sudden finding out that we are funding circumcisions in Mozambique? That was a real one. How does that even happen? How does that get through all the bull crap and get to where it's not being, scrutinized or looked at? How does that even happen? Well, the reason, or the way it happens, is that they've built another tier of deep state operatives in these NGOs right below, that everything is just on automatic, and it doesn't matter who is elected. So we looked at some of those organizations like Internews. I'm like, well, who the heck is Internews? Well, it's a trusted partner with the USAID that will help to fund 9 out of 10 journalists within Ukraine that received outside funding. 9 out of 10. Now, you wonder, well, how come we always get the same narrative? And it's always lockstep with what the administrative state wants. It's the same narrative coming from some of these countries that we're meddling with. Well, this is how. Because USAID will go through Internews, their buddies, their partners, they want to push a certain agenda, and then they feed that directly into the local news of some of these countries. This is how the deep state in the United States operates. It's how it spreads globalism. Another one, the acronym was CEPS, C-E-P-P-S. That's another one of their big partners in that other tier. They receive about $500 million, $500 million every single year. We don't even know most of the time where this money comes from. It just gets $500 million straight from USAID. It's all automatic. It renews every single year. And then they'll go off and meddle in elections all over the world. I mean, and this just is, it's like I said, it's automatic. It just continues to happen.
When I hear this, I just think of Congress, and they always say like the pork projects that they have in the bills that they try and fund. Man, wouldn't that be nice if it was only the congressional districts in the United States that we had to worry about, instead of like going through and going to Mozambique and sending our money all around the world? But when you were talking about how deep the administrative state is, the deep state, in the fact that you go through and say, oh no, them circumventing the Constitution is the point. Well, it brings up what the Democrats are trying to say now, which is they always project, so you always know when they're pointing basically the fingers back at themselves. But they're like, oh, Elon Musk, he's not elected. Who elected him? Right? Well, no, you've set up this entire apparatus for decades to do exactly this.
Yeah, it was set up and designed so that people that were unelected could continue to run this country in a direction that they wanted to. And now you have, and actually we did vote for this. We absolutely did. Donald Trump said exactly what he was going to do with DOGE. He named Elon Musk as the person that was going to do this, and we gave him the mandate to do this. And all they're trying to do is tear down that system. So when it comes down to real, brass tacks, they're trying to empower the elected government is what they're trying to do. So if you're in Congress, if you're, I don't know, Nancy Pelosi, you should be cheering this on because what he's trying to do is give you more power. That's what he's doing. You're elected. You can vote on this. These other unelected people are not. So how retarded are you if you're in Congress and you're saying, no, we got to get rid of this?
It really is crazy how Congress doesn't want power. When you put it that way,
Yeah.
It reveals the case that they have given their power away. They don't want it. They're creatures of this other entity. So as Glenn said, auditing USAID is just the beginning here, right? I mean, so what else needs to be done? Because it seems like this goes far beyond USAID. It's almost that's the tip of the spear for something larger. What do they need to do next?
For one, all of these, and I think this has actually begun, but all of these just automatic, Congress approves the budget, which, they keep on raising, the limits on what they can allocate anyway. But all of these just blanket payments, let's say like $4.7 billion to USAID, that needs to stop. For starters. And a lot of that is ongoing. But then you have to look at where is the money going afterwards. There's that great tool, Data Republican, which you can log on yourself and just, if you're curious, do your own homework on it. Go take a look. Just punch in, start with Internews. Start that and CEPPS. Punch those in, do your own homework on this, and see and follow the trails of money. You will see every single NGO that it'll show up bright red that shows where government funding is. Those need to be audited as well. You can't just audit USAID. The system is designed to kind of like a laundromat is what it is, because the money will start there, it'll go another place, then all of a sudden it goes to a hospital that's doing circumcisions in Mozambique. So every single level, these NGOs underneath, and these NGOs right here all need to get the audit bat. If they don't, then this is going to survive 4 years, and it's going to pick up during the next administration.
And we see DOGE right now. Everybody is kind of on board just saying, okay, we want to go through and we want to cut spending and we need Congress to kind of hold hands with DOGE and figure this out on a bigger level. But if they've been doing this and this has been in place for so long, how long is it going to take to unwind and unravel what they have built in place that is supposed to be beyond the shadows, right? Like you're not even supposed to be able to see it.
Well, I think that it actually can be done. I think they can do this in 4 years. I think that they can, successfully identify all the major players in this, and I think they can kick out some of the unelected bureaucrats that have had their jobs for probably 722 years. I think they can kick them out. For a rough estimate.
Yeah.
I might have skipped a couple birthdays. But yeah.
It's okay.
But I think that they will be able to label some of these NGOs, completely cut them off from federal funding. But the problem will be, let's say if disaster strikes and we don't get reelected in 4 years, then what we need to do is completely shut these organizations down and write laws. Congress needs to get their butts in gear and actually write laws to take some of this power of that's their whole job, is power of the purse. But they've delegated it off to organizations like USAID or the State Department, which gets billions and billions of dollars and just doles these out. You need to actually wield the power of the purse and take accountability for where our dollars are going. This is so insane. You think about it. They're arguing about where some of this money is going, our tax dollars. But if the entire country realized that, hey, all the money you're doing right now, it's not even your money. You're paying taxes now, probably till around April, and then that money becomes your money. Now, all that money you're working so hard for, you're busting your butt on. You don't even have claim to it right now. The government does, and they're sending it overseas.
I don't even know where to start with you. I mean, first you want Congress to pass laws, and now you want Congress to pass a budget, which,
wow.
I mean, laws are one thing, but a budget? Do you want them to budget every year like it says they should do in the Constitution? Anyway.
What if we just do one CR in December and then we'll get another one passed for March?
Gosh.
What if we just keep going that route?
Just keep putting down that credit card. How about DOGE? What do you think about DOGE right now? It's very interesting what they did. I think it's very smart, right? That they took the digital services, an existing entity, right? But certainly many people have the impression that they are bouncing around out there doing all kinds of, random, according to the media, they're just bouncing around doing all kinds of random stuff and they have access to everyone's private data and all this sort of thing. Do you think there's any legitimate concerns there? Are they doing great stuff? Do you have any thoughts about what they should do next?
I have no legitimate concerns on what they're doing, period, right now. They haven't, basically what they're doing is what every other government does or says they do, but actually in private. So audits are not a new concept. Apparently, Matt, they audit the Federal Reserve all the damn time.
I don't,
you know?
Yeah,
But what's the problem, though? What we want is a public audit of the Federal Reserve, but they don't want it to be public. So what DOGE has come in and done is they've made everything blanket, made everything out. They're putting everything out there. Every time they make a cut, it's public, and that is their biggest sin.
I saw this tweet. It really cracked me up by this gal who I believe it was a woman who used to work at the Weekly Standard, and at least she said she used to work at the Weekly Standard, which is, I think, a conservative publication, or it was on the right. And she asked the question a few weeks ago, how do we know that Elon Musk is credentialed or has the ability to do an audit? And I mean, I really did this double take thing. I can think of some answers to that question. Maybe because he's one of the most successful businessmen ever in the history of the world.
Right.
But anyway, let's move on. So this is it seems like they keep on throwing these objections. Like Jill, we've heard this more than just on the plane on the way back from these people, but they keep throwing these objections. They don't seem to be sticking yet. I don't suppose we know of what the actual plan is, but it does seem like they're systematically moving from agency to agency.
Yeah, I mean, I hope they continue, and I hope they continue to treat this country, and at least the budget side of it, as a business. That's what you have to do. You should be doing in a business. If the heads of your organization, the finance department, the people that are auditing, the CEO, the board, all those people, if they screw up, if they misallocate money, then their company goes under. Our country should have been ran that way from the beginning. If the government screws up, then they say, oops, my bad, and push the burden on us, the taxpayer. That can't be allowed to continue. That can't be. Treat it like a business. Treat it with actual public auditors that have to then present their findings to the stockholders. That's how actual businesses are run and corporations are run. That's how the American corporation should be ran. Make it all public, put it out there, let us see what's happening, and then make your relevant cuts. I mean, that's how it's working. I think that people are freaking out so much is because we're so used to them politicizing and being corrupt and doing their own thing around the Constitution that we just don't know the difference. Right. And that's incredibly sad that this right now, this concept of a public auditing like DOGE is such a scandal.
We should treat it like a business. People are seeing the unemployment rate go up in DC, and everybody, you know what? I think for the first time, they're like, I think we're okay with that.
Yeah, I think so.
Jason Buttrill, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
We're talking about government secrets here. We're going to continue that. Should Pam Bondi, what documents should she be declassifying first? We'll have your thoughts right after this. Well, promises made, promises kept. Everybody is getting a little impatient for one of them. We were told that we would get the Epstein files, but Attorney General Pam Bondi, she said she had them on her desk, and now we're still waiting for them to be declassified. So I went to X earlier today and asked you which documents you want to see Pam Bondi have declassified first. And it was either the Epstein files, the JFK files, or the Donald Trump assassination attempts. Far and away, everybody, 75%, a huge majority, Peterson, they want the Epstein files. We've been promised this. They know there's going to be a lot of dirt in those. That's what the people want.
I mean, it's interesting because obviously people care very deeply about the assassination attempt, and they care a lot about many other things besides. But I think Epstein has become the symbol of the last decade of corruption in elite circles generally. And we all know, that because it's so universal, because everyone knows, right? And because Epstein didn't kill himself became a cultural mantra, it stands to reason that most people are saying, like, can we at least get that? Because we all know about it. No one got in trouble. except for his girl.
Yeah.
I mean, unbelievable that's the
entire
case.
World. Only two people. Kate Cornell replied to us, while there's no wrong answer here, I think the Donald J. Trump assassination attempt file should be first because it is the most recent and it seems like this conspiracy is ongoing. That's true with the Epsteins, but I think Epstein will take a lot longer to unravel. And she has a good point there. That is going to be quite the news story once it does get going.
Well, I think the assassination attempt is recent. It's important. It's historic. It's really, I mean, this is a world historical event when you try to assassinate, a candidate and former president. This changed the world in a variety of ways, ultimately to the good, thank God. But we need to know what the hell happened with two different assassination attempts. It is unbelievable, right? It's unconscionable that we don't know more about what happened there.
Scott replied, "Don't care. This is not what she should be focusing on first." Scott putting us in our place today. That's fine. That's totally fine. I'm down with that. A little self-check every now and then. It's good.
I mean, I'm curious what he thinks she should be dealing with first. I mean, there's a lot of things to deal with. But look, part of what has to happen first in general is justice and reestablishing justice. In order to do that, you're going to need to be transparent and release information. The whole point here is that we live in a world now that doesn't seem like it's America because you're not supposed to, you don't know what's really going on and all this information is hidden from you. And we can't have that.
You and Doug Ripley, who we have to round out this, are all about justice today. Doug says the Epstein files and Trump assassinations will bring people to justice, even though the Kennedy assassinations and MLK, for that matter, may yield new details. Those events happened in the 60s. Most responsible for what happened are dead or will be by the time we make sense of it. There is a great recency bias here where we can actually find people that are responsible and hold them accountable right now.
Yeah, I mean, I understand where he's coming from. I think there's a lot of truth to that. We've already waited for decades, so can't we wait a little longer with the old stuff, the MLK. But here's the thing. If it's the case that some shady business went on with the assassination of the Kennedys, I mean, we've had blood on our hands as a nation for that long. I mean, there's lots of repercussions there to think about what kind of society we were living in, and as opposed to what we were telling ourselves about it, right? So there is a lot of importance here in finding the truth. The truth is always important to get out there. But I agree that, I think that the main thing right now is I do want to know about the assassination attempt because we know that there are living people there, and the Epstein files shouldn't be hard. You just release a list of names that you can confirm were there. You could just do that. And the thing is, right now, you have multiple people who have a lot of money who do not want that information coming out.
They certainly do not. When you look at this, though, it's one of those things where, okay, yes, you can look back at the JFK files, and even if they're old, it's going to tell you this is how the government actually works, right? There are so many different multi-level layers, and we talked about it here, with Jason Buttrill on the show. But there are so many different fights, Matthew, that we still need to have out just within the government and how it functions right now.
Yeah, so we hope that we reform the government so that it functions in a more efficient manner. But what we need to realize is that a lot of the battles that we're going to see play out over the course of the next few years are going to be played out within the terms of the bureaucracy itself. The landscape itself is such that it's these agencies and departments have their own set of rules, their own set of operations. So you cannot, in many cases, come in, even though we want to make it this way, but you can't just come in and fire everyone in many cases. You have to play games within the bureaucracy, just like people play games in big corporations, right? So knowing how that works is what's really, really, really important. I can't emphasize this enough. Most people in Washington, D.C. who know what they're doing laugh at the political appointees who come in over the last decades and try to say, we're going to implement our agenda, because there are 30,000 ways that a smart bureaucrat, someone who's been there for a long time and knows how the system works, can thwart you. And they're all going to tell you what you want to hear. They're all going to say, like, oh, no, I'm really on your side. I'm one of you. I'm going to explain how this works. And then they quietly alter things so that you don't get anything done. So think of it this way. A lot of times justice isn't served because you just are able to find out the truth. I don't like this. I think we should find the truth and prosecute people. But a lot of times you do have to get Al Capone for tax evasion. But that's okay as long as you get them all the hell out of the way. So in a large-scale bureaucracy like the Defense Department, for instance, this applies in spades. You might, in fact, so how do you fight the bad guys? Well, you might do things that are indirect. Like you might bring someone in who was there last time, who knows where the bodies are buried, and then says, we should have an investigation into this incident that someone registered a complaint about 3 years ago, right? Those are the kinds of games that are going to have to be played. This is why you should take heart, though, because you have a lot of people coming into this administration who learned these initial lessons the last time. They went to different departments and agencies. Some of them were younger, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. They found out how these things work. The deep state and the uniparty ran roughshod around many parts of the last Trump administration and sort of laughed all the way to the bank. But this time will be different because the people going in have experience, they know how it works, and they'll play these indirect games. Here's what I'll say to you, the audience. What we will do at Blaze is explain what's going on and reveal it to you so that you actually know the fights and the good guys and bad guys as this war plays out over the next few years.
When I listen to you, and we're talking about the Kennedy assassinations, I just think of RFK Jr. now being a part of Donald Trump's cabinet. I don't care what he's in there for. Once you're in there, you can move freely about the cabin, sir. Go ahead, right? Like, I go back to the COVID jab special that we had out in Nashville with Jason Whitlock and Steve Deace and a ton of different people were there for that. And we just spent the day with RFK Jr. And he would just go through and he's like, this is what my dad knew. This is what JFK knew. These are all the things. This is where basically all the bodies are buried. That if you want to go through and take down the government agencies from within, right? All of the bureaucratic nonsense that we know about. Well, this is how you do it. And now he's in there, right? And a lot of people know this. And it is the Avengers assembling right now that it's not just all the young kids, right? There's no Omarosas this time in the Trump administration. Trump has gone out and gotten the very skilled people, and now we sit back and watch what happens.
Yeah, I mean, one of the most insane dramas, you can't believe it's real even, right, is that RFK Jr., if there's anyone who wants to find out the truth about what happened in the Kennedy assassinations, it's him. And there's a certain justice for him to be in there when supposedly they're going to release this information. Because he's there, you think they actually will. But again, people are not wrong to be upset, right? I give them some time. People are not wrong to be upset that this information isn't coming out in a forthcoming manner right away. Give them some time, but we will hold them accountable if it doesn't come out.
You know what the problem is that they've done? Is they've just given us so much information so quickly, and we're like, we're waiting on something right now. We haven't been waiting on information to come out from this administration. The first 4 weeks have been a constant flow of just here. Your 24-hour news cycle, here you go. You want another huge headline? Here you go.
No, I mean, it slows down for like a normal news cycle for a day, and you're like, oh, it's kind of slow now. But it doesn't last long. It doesn't last long because there is so much going on. There is so much winning happening. And so we have our work cut out for us to bring it to you.
I look forward to all the headlines tomorrow. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you then.